this computer. Those of you that are joining the recording, I will include a link somewhere in here to the video that we just played. It's 3 minutes long. You guys can catch it when you're watching the recording. Guys, but the critical feature here is, and I see this in so many places, people say to me, Dan, I've met with other people, right? Dan, I've had one-to-ones, right? They understand my credibility. I understand theirs. I'm referable in theirs. They're referable in mine, but the leads aren't coming. It's because you're leaving off the critical ingredient. This is where I start to look like the lone nut. And this is true of people that even do casual networking, but understand that what we do through Ninja, through Premier, through the network and action philosophies that I espouse is not modifying the old programs. It's doing something completely different. Doing something completely different. And what I've found, by the way, is this, right? If people, and I used, by the way, before I started to teach a lot of this, I used to get a lot of this in my local network and action group that I ran. Gee, Dan, I just joined and nobody has reached out to me. And I'm reminded of the woman who posted on Facebook publicly just a few weeks ago in my world, dating in your 40s is really hard. And she got a lot of affirmation for that. And I put into the comment thread, time for a dating coach. And she LOL'd it and then said, I don't need a dating coach. I need more single men to move to South Carolina. You want reality to change, but not you. Which do you have control over here? Reality, everybody else, or you? Right? You've got control over you. So the other part of this is as you start doing this inside our own circles, Premier and the other people in your immediate sphere, you will find them doing it back, right? First follower concept. Secondly, they are appreciative of your leadership. I have never done what I'm about to do with anybody else that hadn't already been taught how to do it, that didn't say, this is genius. I'm learning just by showing up today and getting referrals from you. Because it's the missing ingredient, right? So Mark and I were talking about the fact that he hasn't seen the value that he wants to see yet. We talked about what the differences could be. And I said, I'm going to use you as the guinea pig. He volunteered to be first follower. So I'm shirtless guy. He's the heavyset dude doing cartwheels on the lawn. So props to Mark, for being the first follower and therefore a leader in that regard. So we're gonna dig into this and we're gonna create introductions in real time. I am gonna close YouTube because I don't need it anymore. I'm gonna open up a very small word processing document because I have limited resources on this computer, even though Z has given me upgraded memory. So don't refer me to Zoltan. He's already handled it for me. Okay, this thing only takes so much. Okay, so I'm gonna open up WordPad and then I'll do a screen share with WordPad so you guys can start to see me. And I won't share it just yet, but I'll do that in a minute when it starts to matter. Okay, so Mark, I'm going to create some introductions to Mark. One of the things that he said to me was a minute ago, right? You saw me ask him in real time if you were here at the top of the meeting, and he said blue collar types. Okay, so I wrote down 3 names, right? James Coleman owns a garage door and concrete polishing business. I met him recently, but we have a decent degree of credibility between us. He just invested a lot of money in getting a prime location. He had to pay for like a year's worth of rent up front to get the best deal. So he just pretty much wiped out his savings. I would imagine that if you can, bill him on a 30-day cycle, right? After some small earnest money deposit, right, Mark? That, if you can get results for him quickly enough, right, and make it pay
Right.
for itself, that might be the way to go. Okay.
Sure.
So first thing we want to ask everybody to be aware of, what's the objective of the introduction I'm making between Mark and James? What do we want the outcome of that introduction to be? You got to be clear. What do you want it to be? What do you want it to be, Monica?
For that guy you mentioned to hire Mark to.
I want the outcome to be a meeting. I want the outcome to be a meeting. I don't know if James needs to hire Mark. I don't know if Mark's the right guy for James to hire, if James does need marketing. I don't know that. I want a meeting. So the first thing is set your expectation correctly. If I want James to buy Mark stuff, I'm going to have to write page after page after page of how awesome Mark Campbell is and hope James reads it. Not likely to happen. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in exploring the chemistry. So the objective is always a meeting. All right. That's the first thing you want to be aware of. And my normal model is a short meeting to see about a longer meeting. I think the short conversation at the beginning to see if we are even in the right ballpark, right? In part because nobody likes to get set up to buy something. We love to shop and buy, but we don't like to be sold. Anybody know anybody with a boat? Do they brag about the day they got sold the boat? Man, I went out, it was great. I finally had that bonus. And man, that guy just sold me a boat so good. It was great. It was a wonderful experience. No, they say what? I remember the day I bought my boat, right? We didn't get sold a boat, or we don't want to think we did. We bought the boat, right? So people like to establish if they're a prospect before they are a prospect, right? So I want to create a room for Mark and James to talk and figure out if James really is a prospect. Because if Mark's doing it right, he's sniffing out James as much as James is sniffing out Mark. Does that make sense? Okay. Now, Mark may have fewer questions for James, right? Meaning, I don't think he might qualify James as hard if James is the one with the money in his hand, as James might qualify Mark as the person that's receiving the money. But there's definitely, we're going in both directions here. Okay, I'm going to do a screen share, and hopefully this is captured in the recording. Document WordPad. Okay. All right, so you guys are seeing my WordPad in real time?
Yep.
Good to see you in person the other day. Glad to know you are making some big moves in your business. Okay, what's the point of this? This is my natural language. This shows that it's not a cut and paste, right? It acknowledges that I ran into James out there the other day, right? I was talking with one of my trusted connections earlier today, and your name came up. So I'm making this introduction. Mark Campbell is part of my inner circle. What's the value in saying that? Something like that. What's the point?
Huge value, trust.
Trust. Trust. This is the part where I'm passing trust from person to person. Right? Now, I don't have a yardstick, right? But when I said to Lori, you and Drew ought to be good for each other, right? Drew, on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you and I at? Trust factor, professional trust. Scale of 1 to 10.
Oh, I was ready to make the deal, so to speak. Actually, I've already signed up on the calendar.
So you and I are 10. Lori, and you don't say 10 if it's not 10. Where are you and I?
Probably an 8.
Okay. So when Lori meets Drew, where do they start? At an 8.
Pretty high up on the scale.
At an 8, right? If I was at a 8 with Lori, but a 6 with Drew, where would it start? At a 6, right? Whatever the lowest link in the chain is. But isn't that better than 0? Because when you show up at a networking event, where are you at with everybody in there? 0. Even if you've seen them before, if you haven't ever gotten into a conversation, you're still at 0. Right? Just because you've seen them doesn't mean they're credible. Right? Okay. So I'm establishing, right? I'm kind of putting this on a scale of 1 to 10, right? Okay, so I'm going to go back to the screen share so you can see how this unfolds. Okay, but I'm just making sure you guys know what we're doing here, right? He's done. Don't make fun of my typing. See, for those of you that are part of Premier, you can brag about this because Mark is actually a preferred vendor for all of Network in Action, the entire Network in Action system internationally. It's pretty cool. How do you want me to phrase it, Mark? This is where I need you to kick in. How do you, what is it you want me to say about the work that you do in the context of a blue collar person?
Help your ideal customers find you online
Okay.
or when they search for your services.
Right. Okay. He works with tradesmen like you to make sure yours is the business most easily found when folks search for your line of work. Anything you want to say about how long you've been in business or how many businesses you've helped, Mark? Anything that'll add to your cred?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I'll talk about that on the call. If you think it's useful, then sure.
I would.
Dec-
How many years
Decade
in
plus,
business? Huh?
14,
Mm-hmm.
doing this kind of thing. So
Okay. If that's too a corporate jargony, guys, y'all shout me down and I'll change it. I get caught up listening to other people and I start to use the words they use too much.
no,
You have a scheduling link you'd like me to give her, or do you want me to leave
I
it to
do.
y'all
Yeah,
to
I can
Yep.
put it in here.
throw it in the chat, right? Okay. So
Yeah, I mean, the way I typically frame it, the first call is always just it's really exploratory, and I'll actually probably pull some reports for him by the time we connect.
okay,
So
and just for the sake of this meeting, I'm also going to throw the exact same text in the chat. So this is the point, Mark. I'm not telling you how I'm going to introduce you. We're co-creating how you're going to be introduced, right?
Mhm.
So given that text, right? I'll stop the screen share. I'm going to throw all this in chat real quick. And by the way, if I were y'all, I would be taking 3 lines of notes, 3 different pages or something like that. 3 lines of notes, 3 columns, whatever you want. One is, as you think of people you need to introduce Mark to, keep a list of that going, right? Number 2 is notes to yourself about how you want to be sure you're introduced, right? Start the nut of what you want to include. Third is any questions about the work that we're doing, right? Those, in my mind, those are 3 types of notes. I don't care how you segregate them on your notepad, but keep in mind there's 3 sorts of notes you could be taking. People I can introduce Mark Campbell to based on this conversation. What is the nut, the core of the introduction I want from people? And then lastly, what questions do I have about this whole process? So Mark, based on what you see there, what do you want me to edit or change?
Well, I don't know. It's an interesting question for you. I mean, I think, and here, this let me just before I give an opinion. In your experience, would a long like this I would consider this like a long form intro, right?
Mhm.
It's a little bit descriptive. I mean, you're kind of touching on both his pain point, what your
Mhm.
relationship, what my pain or my offering, etc. Do you recommend something of this length for a typical intro, or is this you would only recommend something of this length with a certain category of referral? Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Great. Okay, there's 3 basic templates of intro. Connection to connection. Somebody that you kind of sort of know to somebody that you kind of sort of know.
Right.
Nothing wrong with that. Network to network. Somebody that you know really well to somebody that you know really well. And then connection to network. Right? Suzanne, most of you have heard me say this. Suzanne knows that I do this. I repeat this story about twice a week in various contexts. One of the best intros I ever got was from Suzanne Taylor King. It said, Daniel, Ruben, y'all both do big things. Do big things together. That was the whole intro. The LinkedIn, the intro is not what made it powerful, Lori. The fact was that Daniel and Ruben both knew that Suzanne knew us well enough to know that it was a good intro. And my reply was, I know better than to argue with STK, LOL. Here's my link. And Ruben replied, I know better than to argue with STK, LOL. I booked.
Yeah.
Because we had the confidence, right? Now, James doesn't know me that well. We've had a couple of conversations about whether I can support the growth of his business from a strategic standpoint, not a marketing, but a strategic standpoint. So he has some degree of trust in me, right? But he didn't engage. He hasn't written me a check. It doesn't look like he's going to anytime soon. So at some level, he's decided that, I'm not the one to deliver, what he thinks he wants, right? So in the context where I'm maybe at a 3 or 4 with James, that doesn't mean I'm in the negative, by the way. Anything greater than 0 is a plus, right? I'm at a 3 or 4 with James. I need to emphasize the fact that I'm at a 9 or 10 with Mark. Otherwise, James will miss the point, right?
Sense. Yep.
Does that make sense? So
Yep.
I think a lot of it has to do,
So you're-
particularly if you're being introduced to a prospect, because they need to understand that the point is they may spend money with you.
So it seems like in this context, you're in some ways selling this gentleman as well. So this intro is in some capacity a touch point for you in terms of you closing the deal.
I don't know. He said I spent all my money on the new facility, so I don't have anything to invest in coaching. And I'm like, okay, so no, I don't. Once somebody, how many of y'all have ever had I'll call you back later, get back to you? It never happens. It doesn't happen, right? Gretchen can vouch for that. Never happens. Okay, I'm not worried about trying to get the deal. I'm trying to establish with him how well I know you, because if I just go, hey, I met this guy, Mark Campbell, right? He may think I know you about as well as I know him, which is not that well.
Right.
So it's a little longer because I'm making sure he's getting the conveyance of the fact, in other words, he's under the impression that I'm at an 8, 9, or 10 with Mark. I'm at a 10, but he's under the impression I'm at an 8, 9, or 10 with Mark, right? As opposed to leaving the impression that I barely know him the way I barely know James. Does that make sense? Do you want me to include your calendar link in this?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So
Or
in that case,
I'll send a calendar link. I wouldn't. I mean, I
Okay.
feel like I can respond and
correct. It's a reason for you to lean into the conversation. There are a lot of cases where I say to people, the way that they phrase it is, he's given me permission to share his calendar link, which elevates your relationship with them. Does this make sense? Right? As a matter of fact, Suzanne, I'll let you in a second, Drew. I'm thinking about buying a domain called iknowsuzannetaylorking.com, and that's going to redirect to my Calendly link that has extra accessibility. It's $1.99 a month, right? I know Monica B, right? And it's going to redirect to my priority Calendly link. I know Drew Sutton, and it's going to redirect to my priority. If I don't do that, I'm going to come up with a Calendly link that's called calendly.com/and I know Suzanne Taylor King. That's going to be the name of the URL, right? And it's going to have extra access. So it elevates the person in the middle too. Isn't this interesting? All right, what do you got, Drew?
This amount of text doesn't seem to fit super well in a LinkedIn. I mean, it kind of is okay for a LinkedIn post. Is this an email or is this LinkedIn? What format would you send this link on?
That doesn't seem like a ton to me in some contexts, right? I could do email. I'm not entirely sure I've got, what? That's not true. I do have James's email because he's got it on my calendar. I knew him from LinkedIn. From Facebook. That's where we started the conversation about he wanted to grow his business and, maybe I could help. So if all I had was his Facebook, I would go there, right? But anyway, I know I've got his email because he's been on my calendar, right? So I'm going to put this in an email. If you're using a tool like My Most Trusted or Ninja Connect, you can create the exact same intro through LinkedIn and LinkedIn and email at the same time with one click. But that's a whole nother story. I'm going to put this in an email, okay? And not to watch you guys make me open up my Outlook. Just understand I'm going to park it there, Mark. I'll do it when we close out today. Okay, before.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
I appreciate that.
Okay, questions about what we're working on there? I'm selling him on Mark, but I'm not selling him Mark. I'm selling him on meeting with Mark, but I don't expect him to show up with his checkbook out. Now, if it was somebody I knew as well as Sarah Griepo, I'd be like, Sarah, Mark's answered your problem. Show up with your checkbook open, and have an idea of your budget. I bet you two can work something out. Right? I could do that. Okay. John Peavy used to carry the Roto-Rooter plumbing franchise in our town. Got
His name John
sideways with
what?
them, huh?
John what?
John Peavy, Peevey.
Okay.
He let the Roto-Rooter brand go. He started his own. He calls it WECO, WECO, which stands for West Columbia, because that's the part of town. It's kind of a nickname for this district, WECO. Okay, WECO. I know him pretty well. He spent about $20,000 in coaching with me over time.
Okay.
Right. I know that he's always looking to make his marketing better. Right. He struggled with people that, were on staff and then, they weren't reliable or he mismanaged them or whatever. So an outside agency might be the way to go.
Sure.
I have some cred between he and I, right?
Mhm.
If he spent 20K with me, right, as well as being a member of Network in Action for 5 years, I have some cred, right?
Right.
But I will also say he's really bad about keeping his appointments. I quit offering him a coaching invoice when I realized he was only making 50% of his appointments with me. So
Got it.
that's a piece of it. Hopefully, crap. I was about to say, hopefully nobody's in Columbia. Zoltan's in Columbia. Okay, that's NDA level information there, Zoltan. We're not going to disparage the local community, right? Okay. But he is now on the wagon and has been for a couple of years, and he's proud of that. I don't mind saying that in public because he puts it on Facebook, right?
Right.
So I think he's probably a lot more reliable now than he used to be, right?
As long as we get on the first couple calls, I don't mind standoffish as the clients. I mean, I do my work in the background. I talk to them as much as they need.
Right. You can
It's
get
little.
98%
I have
of
clients
your
say
work
I'll
done
talk
via
to you every
email.
quarter.
Yeah.
I have clients that I only want to talk to you once a quarter, Mark. And there's clients who say I want a weekly catch up. We can do both. Yeah. So anyway,
Nice.
that works.
Okay. So how do we want to word that one in this case? Okay. Anything in the, I mean, am I going to keep the nut in the middle pretty much the same?
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
So
I think what's interesting.
yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead. You tell me.
I mean, I feel like I don't know. This is just me, but though he's got 14 years experience doing exactly this. I don't know. I mean, you tell me. I feel like my intros are always a lot shorter, and when I talk to people, I keep it pretty high level. I don't certainly don't mind the intro, especially if you advise that it's better with someone like this. Traditionally, I would, I think the way you introduced him was good, and saying something along the lines of, "Hey, I know you've invested in your business and growing a franchise. You're competing with a lot of big dogs like Roto-Rooter or something like that. Touching on that, Mark's, this is what Mark does is help you find ways to, um, again, on the spot, it's kind of tough, but this is where I would chat with him. I don't know, like find ways to compete with those big dogs, or just simply say, to take your business from word of mouth to just a consistent stream of income from Google, something like
Right.
that. But
Cool. Right. And remember, because John knows that I know John pretty well, I can afford to abbreviate this pretty strongly. Right.
Yeah.
Meaning he knows that I know what his needs are, and therefore I've got the confidence, right?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Okay. So I'll share with you guys in a second. I'll share right now because there's no point in you just staring at the screen when I'm doing something, guys. I want you to see. I want you to see the subtlety of how I'm making the shift here on this introduction. Okay.
Mark, can you throw your cell phone in the chat so I could utilize that to send a three-way text?
Cool. Oh yeah, I'm just seeing STK. You said something too. Yeah, here.
Or is that what's the preferred method you want to be connected with?
I mean, cell phone's great. I mean, I mean, email is always ideal, but I talk to people all the time on the phone. So, I mean, I don't mind them calling me. It's gravy. I just had a client call me for for an hour before this call. So, no, it's all good, or a prospect rather. So,
Okay.
yeah, whatever they prefer. If they like to talk on the phone, I like to talk on the phone. It doesn't matter to me.
Correct. Meaning the one variable in here is the person that's not in the conversation.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't need anyone to move to South Carolina. I'm willing to.
Right. The question would be, Greg,
Yeah.
how do you think they want to receive the introduction?
Yeah.
Right. Because they're the variable. Meaning, if Mark views this person as a prospect, he'll flex. Now, I say that. If you think I need to join GroupMe or WhatsApp in order to be your, to have you as a client, I got too many platforms. Somebody said I only communicate through voice messages, and I said then we will never do business together. Keep up the good work.
Yeah.
I can't.
I some
I can't onboard one more platform. But if it's as basic as text, email, or LinkedIn messaging, you are welcome in any of those spheres, right? So
sure.
the person that's getting it, if Gretchen, you want to make the intro, what's your knowledge of how that person would prefer to receive it? It might be restricted to how you know them. There are some people that are hot leads for y'all, but I only know on Facebook. So guess what? You're going to have to be my friend on Facebook so that I can put you in a Facebook thread, right? That's how I know. Okay. So small changes, right? John, good to run into you at the restaurant last month. I've got a guy that might be able to get your marketing firing on all cylinders. I'm going to make one adjustment to what you guys saw on the screen. I'm going to say, I know this has been an an uphill battle for you in the past, right? Acknowledging the struggle, right? Mark Campbell's actually preferred vendor for all of NI across the whole country, belongs to my long group. He does great work. And then I go straight to where I'd recommend a short phone call, right? It can really be that short when the cred already exists. I just need to make sure they understand what the point of the meeting is. Right? Because
Sure.
Dan can vouch for the fact that if you think they're the prospect and they think you're the prospect, you are never going to get that phone call squared away. Right? Suzanne shared that story with me, and I've shared it with a lot of y'all with the names left out. Right? You know the one you're talking about, Suzanne. You've got to be clear who the prospect is here, if it's a prospect versus a referral partnership. If that's the goal, you want to be clear about that too. Right?
Cool. Well, and I want to clarify too, like I like calling people. I like talking on the phone. I only say that because oftentimes phone calls are disruptive to people's days, and I often find it hard to get them on the phone. I usually get to a voicemail and they'll follow up with a text or,
Sure.
email allows them to pick a time where they're free and can focus 5 minutes on a conversation, and that usually helps. Or I'll say, hey, I'll call you this afternoon at 2 o'clock. But,
Sure.
again, I'll follow your lead, Gretchen. It's fine either way.
Correct. And, if I were Mark or John, I would reply with text is easier, phone call is easier, right?
Yeah.
Hey, if you have a scheduling link, I'll use it, but I'm also available this afternoon if you want to pick up the phone and call. Any of those can be really positive, right? So you can nominate the way you want to be, right? So this is another short one, right? John, good to run into you at the restaurant last month. I've got a guy that might be able to get your marketing firing on all cylinders. I know that's been hit or miss in the past. Mark Campbell is actually preferred vendor for network and action across the whole country. He belongs to my long group. He does great work. I'd recommend a short phone call, blah, blah, blah. Right? So the cred, I know him. He's approved. His problem, I know this has been a challenge for you in the past. Y'all should meet. Right? That's what you're shooting for here. And by the way, the text of the introduction is module 5 in Premiere next Tuesday, and 2 Tuesdays after that, module 6 is the referral pairing, this activity. So any of y'all that have already been through Premiere that want to repeat modules 5 and 6, come Tuesday and 2 Tuesdays after that. Okay, you're welcome to show up for that. For Ninja, right? Modules in Ninja. Sorry. All right. Good start. All right. Med spa, Brandy, runs a med spa here in town. Okay. She's very aggressive about growth. She's super professional. She's been burned by people in her local weekly leads group. I'm sure you can guess the brand name of the organization. Right? Who've done crap work for her in the past. Right? But she also trusts me. And she gave up a couple years ago posting on Facebook, I need a new XYZ. And she just DMs me directly and says, who you got? Because she knows she can trust me more than she can trust her own leads group, which is kind of a sad statement to make, but it's true. Okay. Med spa. Yeah. But, the esthetician thing, right? The wax and the electrolysis and all that stuff.
Of course. Yeah.
What do you want? What do you want me to say? I have a pretty good degree of cred with her. I haven't struck with anybody yet. What do you want me to say? Basically, same thing as John Pete.
Well, if she's been burned,
Yeah.
then I would phrase it more, hey, look, I know you've been looking.
I don't know
I
that
know
she's been
growth.
burned in the marketing
Right,
department. I don't know that
right,
she's
right.
marketing, but still.
Right. That's what I mean. Yeah, yeah, for sure. I would say, hey, look, I think Mark's worth having a conversation with. You know, he's helped clients like that in the past. I mean,
Mhm.
he's got a no pressure, approach. Really can provide a lot of data, even if you don't do business with him. He provides a ton of data and insight that I think will help you regardless. It's worth to have, 30 minutes with him on a call for sure. Something like that.
Yeah, good. Okay, right. Because she's been burned in the past, I might need to hammer the credibility just a little bit harder, right? Brandy, Mark's one of my strongest, most referable connections.
Yeah, and just to give some context too, I don't want, do this in front of everyone, but I get feedback a lot even when I don't close. Like I just had one the other day, didn't ended up not closing because of budget and whatnot. He's
Right.
like, what I learned from you in the last couple meetings, your email, he's like far beyond anything I've got from any of the other agencies. So I'm holding for now, but as soon as I make a move, I'm gonna call you, which was pretty cool, right? And I get that semi-frequently because like I'm gonna run a bunch of reports. Like we'll go through, I'll book a half hour and sit on with an hour for it. It's usually how it works. And I get scolded by the torts for that, but it is what it is. Um, and they're probably right. But regardless, she'll get value even if she doesn't do business with me, fortunately or unfortunately.
I think that's a decent way. As long as you're comfortable with the rate at which you're being compensated in the world, I think
Fine.
you're okay giving
It's
your time
fine.
away. Right, right.
That takes care of me, yeah.
Okay, so right, so but again, because she's been burned, right? I'm emphasizing the first meeting still is going to have value that you don't have to commit to spending money, right?
Yeah.
Mark's one of my strongest, most referable connections. He has some skills in marketing, specifically with day spas / med spas. Not sure where you're at with your marketing at the moment, but he's a real giver and has a reputation for sharing some deep insights into your marketing data, even in the initial discovery call. And then it's I'd recommend, right, a short phone call or, meeting to explore for longer ones in order, right? Finish with the objective. Y'all need to get together. All right. Okay, let's pause for a minute. Let's talk about what happened and why. Any questions, any feedback, anything you need to understand, any pushback. You want to argue with me on some of this, guys? Because if you've got data or a strong opinion, I'm willing to hear it. I'm not 100% right all the time. I just know what works. Okay, so talk to me. It was crystal clear. Y'all understand it all. You're all going to model this behavior for the rest of your lives. This is awesome. My work here is done. I can resign. Y'all just mail me a check for $10,000. We'll call it a day. How's that sound? All right. Do you see why it works? Do you see why it's replicatable? Meaning, in a standard referral pairing, Mark would be giving me referrals, I'm going to be giving him referrals. I'm not worried about that in this moment because cash is flowing from Mark to me as a client of this group, right? That's my value proposition. So I'm on deck to do this. Any of y'all can do this with me, but you should be doing it with each other inside Premier as well. Because when you find that rhythm where you've got a lead or two for them, they've got a lead or two for you, you'll keep that up forever. I don't have any problem getting people on my calendar. Once somebody said, "How often do you go back to the same people and ask for leads?" I said, How often do you ask your husband for a hug?" I said, don't you give him a hug back when he asks you for a hug, right? Isn't there some mutuality in that? If there's value every time we meet, you can meet as often as you can stand to meet. Monica, what you got?
Yeah, it's just how long I did the ninja twice, right? Because my default is to go back to what I already know.
My default is to go back to what I already know.
And as I have started implementing this more and more, someone that came to this network as a guest like a month or two ago, we had a meeting and I said, well, he started talking about networking rooms and I said, well, the last 2 months, I've only been in one Zoom room that was not hosted by Daniel. And he went, whoa, because everyone is tired of the hello, new person, hi, new person, let's meet another person, right? And then someone else in this sphere, I had a meeting with them a couple of days ago, and they said, so what do you say when you're at networking events? And I said, you won't find me there. And she went, and then I had another meeting this week, an old connection that I've been nurturing that connection for several years now. And this time I was even more clear, right? I'm here to build a strong connection
With a few people.
with a very few people, and I'm tired of running around in different networking groups. And as soon as I started talking, this guy goes,
I'm tired too.
because there was such a relief,
Yeah.
because he's tired too, right? And then we started talking, and he had just come back from this quarterly event with senior leaders in a company that's scaling big time.
Yeah.
And he was, oh, they have a problem that you can solve.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk to the CEO tomorrow.
There you go. You see, and John made a good point in the chat, right? John is fairly universal. His service is fairly universal, right? You can get into a lot of conversations, with a lot of businesses around that. So make sure that you're carrying John's contact information as you go forward. Couple of fast points. By the way, guys, the older I get, the more I understand about way people learn and understand. There's acquisition, there's assimilation, and then there's adoption. And so if you've been through Ninja as onboarding, come again. Come to office hours. What happens at office hours? Craig, Sarah, Monica. Big stuff happens at office hours. Take care, Suzanne. I know you got to bounce. Right? Big stuff happens at office hours. Guys, Fridays noon to 1. Same Zoom link. Because it takes a while to get this in place. Okay? That's why I repeat Ninja 3 times a year. You guys can come back to it anytime. Once you've been through the whole system, drop in on any module if you want. You don't have to commit to all 6 modules every time. Show up for the ones that make sense to you. But guys, this is going to make the difference, right? I did promise we do some breakouts. We're going to take a minute to do that here in a second, right? Because we're going to finish because we got 15 minutes left into this. But guys, I want to make sure I'm accessible to work and coach on this, okay? These are 3 solid leads. That could represent anywhere from, ongoing, I don't know, probably between 5 and 25,000 to you, over the next year or two, Mark, if they all come through. They won't all come through, but that statistic represents some significant revenue, for Mark on this stuff, right? By the way,
I appreciate that, Daniel. Thanks for taking the time, brother.
Anybody, and I can do this again because I have more, right? We only had time for 3. You just get back on my calendar, right? Anybody in the process thought of leads that you have for Mark? Just hold your hand up so he knows who to connect with. As we were going through this exercise, anybody know people that Mark could probably be serving? I know you've got at least a couple, Craig, right? Gretchen's got a couple in mind. Okay. So we'll make sure that everybody's got, everybody's contact info on this stuff. Okay. Breakouts. Craig, who you want in your breakout room? Who do you want to pick? You got to come off mute in order to tell me, or you can just point at them on the screen.
That was just sharing the secrets of life there. Let's see. I can go Lori.
Okay, good deal. I think y'all will be good for each other. All right. So can you, Stephanie, can you get the breakout rooms open and start dropping people in? All right, there you go. Okay, so look for your blue button. She's assigned you out to a room. Sarah, who you want to breakout room?
Drew.
All right. Okay. Bruce, who you want to breakout room? Bruce still here? No, he had to bounce. Steve gone? Steve's gone too. Mark, who you want to breakout room? Gretchen, she just said she had some leads for you, all right?
I was gonna say I'll chat with Gretchen. That'd be cool.
Sure, cool. All right. You good with that? John, you and Monica, pop in the room and see what happens. Look for your blue button on your screen there, Mark. And John, should be a blue button. Nicely done.
No problema. I cleaned out from your junk mail 95 bounced emails from, I guess, you have 95 contacts that are not good emails in your contacts, but I also saw those emails that were deleted. It was 2 copies in your, I think, Outlook, or was it? No, it was under your NIA.com. And I saw one like that from Steve McCullough. I think that may be where you got burned because I'd seen something similar with a file shared from Steve McCullough.
That is correct. You are right.
That's how your whole situation came about. So I think hopefully it's good now.
Hope so. We changed all the passwords.
And it's strange because I didn't get that email from you, and I send to all your